For joining us. Welcome to another edition of Sales TV Live. This is the latest in our limited edition series of Sales TV episodes specifically dedicated to the field of marketing. We're coming to you live from Northeastern University. We're joining a classroom full of Huskies in their Intro to Marketing class. Students, again, thank you for allowing us to join you today and be a part of your marketing education. Today, we're joined in the classroom by Brooke Duffy. Brooke is a fractional CRO and business consultant. She advises organizations on overall growth strategies as they look to scale. She helps to identify people, processes, and technologies needed to connect the dots between revenue-driving functions of sales, marketing, account management, and customer success. Brooke, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Yeah. So I know we don't have too much time. I'm going to try
We have all the
to make this as
time.
short as I can. But I actually have kind of an interesting background and story. And it starts actually back in high school. So I'm going to put myself on the spot here to kind of set the bar pretty high with today's conversation. But how many of you are familiar with Jordan's Furniture? Anyone? That's fair. There's not many because you're probably living off of IKEA furniture today. But Jordan's Furniture is a New England brand, a huge furniture retail brand. And when I was in high school decades ago, I won't tell you how many, the founders of Jordan's came to my high school and they did a conversation similar to this, where they talked about how they built their business empire through marketing. And I was fascinated by it. So silly things like nobody tells you that your parking lot spaces have to be painted yellow. So they painted them their brand color. You know, I know you're a Disney guy, so the Disney experience of you have to go through the entire store to get to these experiences that they were creating. And they were real experiences, right? There's one that has a skating rink and one that has a movie theater and there's restaurants. So they really built this whole business, which I think is billions of dollars today, from really good marketing. That's why I decided to study marketing. So I went up the road to Boston College, undergrad. I have a lot of friends that went here, so I love Northeastern, just not in hockey. But at BC, I studied communications and marketing. And then I went into the workforce, and after so many years, I got an MBA at UMass Amherst. And that MBA also has a specialty in marketing. So this has really sort of been my bread and butter. When I went into the workforce, I started at an ad agency in New York City. And I ended up being poached from that agency. So TV Guide, which probably none of you know what that is, and that's okay, came in, it was a media publication, came in to do a happy hour event. And nobody was going into the conference room to talk to them. And I felt bad for these people. They had a whole group there. They seemed very lovely. So I went in to chit chat with them and we had a wonderful conversation. And after they left, they went back to the office and they emailed me. And they said, would you be interested in coming in for a conversation with us? And so I said, sure, why not? And I went and they were like, we think you'd be a great fit here. We just don't have a role for you. So, you know, I'm 2.5 years out of college. I don't know what that means. Okay, this seems like a waste of time. And we just kept the conversation going. And then a few months later, they were like, we're going to create a role for you. And that role is going to be a sales solution executive. And we want you to sit between sales, marketing, creative, which was sort of its own subset outside of marketing, TV Guide the magazine, TVGuide.com, and TV Guide the channel, and help us figure out how to bring all of these functions together to create really incredible advertising opportunities for our advertisers, ultimately increasing revenue share for the business. And so that was sort of my first foray into connecting the dots of revenue functions.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
So, Brooke, this semester, we're learning about the major themes of marketing.
Yep.
Each week, we explore various marketing terms and concepts. The overarching goal for this group, for this semester, is to help the students think and talk like a marketer.
Sure.
So when I asked you before if there was one thing that you could teach the students about marketing, you said marketing through change. So what do you mean by that? And can you give us an example of something you've worked on?
Yeah, so I think when I say marketing through change, there's a couple of things. So marketing itself has wildly evolved, right? When I first got into it, it was a little bit more seen as sort of this art, this creative function in business, a very supporting function. Where marketing is today is it's still the art, but it's also the science. It's the numbers, it's directly impacting bottom line, it's a lot of data and analytics. So marketers through this period have really had to manage that change. But on top of it, industries and the landscape in the market, everything moves so fast now, right? Think about how your own personal buying experiences, when you buy clothes or when you first learn about something, social media, we're so much more connected that everything just moves that much faster. And in order to stay ahead of competition, if you're going to be in marketing for a business, you have to manage through that change. I think the biggest thing about that is sort of being fearless. You'll make more mistakes in marketing than you will in any other function of the business, but that's the only way to stay ahead of the change.
So many things I want to pick up on what you just said.
Sure.
But I want to keep it relevant to the students as well. I love that you said so many mistakes get made, because I told these students day one, I want you to fail. And if you fail in an attempt at learning something, you won't fail in my classroom. So it's encouraging to hear that others, that you're going to fail, so deal with it.
Yep.
The other thing that I really appreciated you saying was the art and science of marketing. We went through an exercise earlier in the semester, style awareness, really to help them explore their own communication styles and understand that their styles are different from how others communicate, and that impacts how messages are received as well. But the one thing I did call out was my experience of the journey from the creative to the scientific in terms of marketing. It's all about measurement and ROI these days, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's two sides to that, in marketing, everything really can be measured. Now, with that said, attribution is something that you can talk about until you're blue in the face and you're never going to solve for it. So that's why it's still very much this art and science, because you have quantitative data, but you have to kind of piece together the qualitative story that makes the most sense and not use every data point. That's especially true as you move up in a career in marketing, because the more that you're uplining information, right, presenting to, the last 11 years I've presented to a board of directors. They don't want to know the nitty-gritty data and analytics that are available. I have to look at that and understand that, but they don't want to know that. So you kind of have to know your audience and what metrics matter, right? The CFO cares about very different things than your head of sales, if that's a different person, or your CEO even. So it's very much understanding both sides of that, but also knowing how to move into each one. Just a real quick, I know you asked me for a story. So I obviously have been in marketing for 20 plus years now, and that means that I was a marketer through the pandemic. And I think that's a perfect example of managing through change. So marketing is one of those functions that so much of what you do is influenced by external factors that you can't control. In world events, and we're in some very serious world events right now, and these are all things that matter to marketers. Knowing how to manage budgets through that, how to communicate, what's going on in the community, whether you say something or not as a brand, what are you going to kind of lock yourself onto? A lot of that often falls to marketing to kind of solve for. So that's some of those changes that I myself very recently and continue today to have to manage through.
So in our textbook, and this is the textbook. Sales, account management, customer success, they're all marketing functions, according to the textbook.
Oh, but I want this.
Yeah, along with the traditional marketing functions of advertising, social media, brand, and PR. What's it like in the real world?
It's not quite there yet, guys. So here's the thing, right? So some companies, and the last organization I was at internally before I started doing fractional stuff, I was the chief revenue officer overseeing all of these functions. And I'm a marketer at heart, so kind of moving my way up in my career, kind of started with marketing and then sales, and account management and customer success. And really there is beauty in taking a marketing mind to oversee those functions. However, that is not the norm. Oftentimes when you look at a CRO role, they really just mean sales. It's a salesperson. They have somebody else overseeing marketing, somebody else overseeing customer success. But this is the conversation today. So more and more, I'm in the room with businesses trying to figure out, hey, how do we connect the dots between these functions? And ultimately it is, they should bubble up to the same leader more than anything, because you have to think of it as the customer journey, right? So to break down those traditional silos, it's not about the marketing funnel. It's not about a sales cycle. It's not about, support responding to troubleshooting issues, things like that. It is really the customer's journey, and that's from the moment they know that you exist, all the way through signing a contract to becoming a brand champion and a brand advocate.
So exploring that, connecting the dots a little
Yeah.
bit more. How do these departments then work together?
I mean, so like any.
Or maybe I should ask, how should they work together?
Exactly. Well, so there's a couple of things, right? So one is like anything in business, it all stems from really good communication. Marketers tend to be the most communicative, along with sales, they're very communicative types. But that's communications is at the crux of marketing. So it's really about communicating. It's about being in the room together. So marketing is often charged with, okay, we need to go capture leads, right? We need to create demand and capture leads. Sales is going to help close win that business. But you know what? It's not up to marketing who those leads are, right? Customer success is going to tell you who the best fit customer is. Sales is going to help inform you. These are people I can move faster to close win than others, and here's why. And so it starts with having those meetings together, setting that strategy together, and communicating regularly. I'm talking regular weekly meetings as a unit versus each individual.
You're singing the song I love to hear.
I wish more people would.
Where customer success is often seen as the end point, and that's the starting point.
Yeah. So there's a great chart that it has it's a graph, right? And so you have this uphill journey, and this is your sales cycle, right? So down here, they don't know you exist, right? It kind of goes up, and it's okay, here's your sales cycle. They're going to sign the contract here. And then it really plummets, right? Because once anyone, and most of my experience has been B2B, so this is definitely true in B2B, but it's a little buyer's remorse, right? We've all felt that with our jeans, but in B2B, it's big. It's like your reputation on the line, right? I just spent a lot of money for this company. If this doesn't work out, that could be my job, my livelihood. And so all of a sudden it kind of goes down, because now you have to figure out, okay, we bought this, we have to implement it, and it has to go well, and everybody's nervous, right? From there, that's when your customer success team can turn that trajectory back up and give them a really good experience and a really unique experience. So I think the big thing for me in business today is most companies are not doing anything novel, right? They're doing something slightly better or minimally different, right, than the next guy. So what makes you stand out as a business is marketing. It's your brand, it's your unique approach. And so that happens, and customer success is hugely delivering most of that. And that's why they have to work so closely with marketing and sales. And then they can turn that, right, that chart right back up.
I love that you brought up buyer's remorse. We actually talked about that in one of the classes here. And I had asked the students, what can marketing do about buyer's remorse, going off of what we had read in the textbook. I'm expecting them to come up with answers like, well, we can do post-acquisition marketing and so on and so forth, and all these elaborate ideas running through my head. And out of the mouths of babes, as they say, the best answer I've ever heard came from this group.
Ooh, I want to know it.
It was, make sure that your value promise is something that you can deliver on.
Yes.
So along those lines, the value promise, how does value promise relate to an organization's mission, vision, values, messaging framework, and brand?
Yeah, so this is the foundation. When I work with my clients today to help them figure out what we call go-to-market, GTM, I don't know if you guys are using that term in here, but it's essentially how are you going out and capturing more marketing and growing, right? It doesn't matter if you're already a product out there, go-to-market is something that you iterate and keep doing over time. And when I start with them, the very first thing that we go through, so I've kind of created this, we'll call it the periodic table of growth functions or capabilities. So it's this big chart that has all these things that you have to think about. And it starts in the top left, right? Left to right. And what's on the top left? It's your vision, it's your mission, it's your values. Because everything has to be anchored in that. So your vision is your why, what you're ultimately trying to create in the future, and everything has to point to that North Star. Your mission is really your what and your how you're actually going to do that. And your values is really who you are as a company. And that's become increasingly more important. So we all know in B2C, you feel you're selling one-to-one, you're making these personal connections, whether we feel like it is or not. In B2B, it is much more that way today too, right? So B2B buyers more than ever are looking for a very personalized experience. And that comes from, what do you value as a company? Who are you? Do I want to do business with you? All of that is what builds trust. It has to be consistent. So it has to infuse everything you're doing. And that's how you build up a brand, that's how you build up equity and trust and authority.
I want to invite the students to ask questions as well. At any time, just raise your hand, let me know. But unless I hear from you, I will continue the conversation. Some might say that marketing is just responsible for feeding the top of the sales funnel. How do you see it?
No, absolutely not. I'm a big advocate. I speak on this often. And that's my whole thing is connecting the dots because it has to be throughout that. I have personally worked at organizations where customer success teams have said, oh, don't market to my customers. You can't talk to them, right? It's just customer service. So like we don't want to be selling them. There's a big difference between marketing to an unknown versus marketing to a known. So, you have a huge opportunity to actually, quite frankly, make it more efficient for functions like customer success to take on some of the burden of continuing to communicate to even active customers through marketing, right? We can automate these things these days. It's, you're creating content that you're using for top of the funnel. You can take that and kind of repurpose it, and it's equally as valuable for further down the funnel. Oftentimes, so I have, it looks like an hourglass, right? And this is sort of one of my charts that I use with customers on, understanding what that journey in the funnel is. And the middle of it is really the sales cycle, right? And the top is that feeding the funnel, and then the bottom is sort of your customer success and how you're creating brand champions and advocates. And on the left-hand side, all the way down that are all the different things that you can be doing in marketing to support those various stages of that entire hourglass versus just, top of funnel. It's, at different points, you want to communicate different things. You might share different types of content or messaging, but it goes throughout the entire life cycle, for sure.
So you mentioned that B2B selling has changed, especially post-pandemic.
Yep.
Two-part question. What do you mean by that specifically? And the second part is, how has marketing changed?
Yeah, so a couple of ways that it's changed. So when I first started in the workforce, B2B sales, you would literally go and knock on doors. And that has been evolving for a number of years because the world was becoming more and more digital and quite frankly, more and more global, which is really exciting, right? The last company I was at was based in Sweden and I was based here. This is kind of the world we live in. The pandemic has expedited that because more and more people and businesses are fully remote now. So it's really hard to get in front of people. And so as marketers, we've had to be extra creative on how are we cutting through digital noise to reach our end user customer at a B2B organization, right? I'm not marketing to an organization or a company, I'm still marketing to people. And so that's why I said earlier, it's becoming more and more personal. You'll see as you get into the workforce, I'm sure you're not getting it now, but I get it as a marketer. Companies that are targeting people like me, I start to see those ads even when I'm scrolling Facebook. I'm not on Facebook for business, right? I'm very rarely on Facebook, but I'm there for family photos of the family out west. And I'll scroll, and in my feed, I'll start to get some advertising on B2B products. And it's because that's, it's no longer, oh, we're knocking on doors and the marketing is email marketing and that's it, right? That's all we did for a very long time. Now it's much more we're infiltrating your sort of entire experience as a person in the role that you have. Does that answer both?
Sure.
Okay.
So what coming changes do you anticipate? What should we be preparing for as those looking to enter the marketing world?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, the conversation now is AI, right? So get comfortable with it, get confident with it. It's gonna move faster than anything, and it's gonna move the role of marketing faster than anything. The uphill battle will be that some organizations may feel like, hey, do we need certain functions or can we just have AI do this, right? Like content creation is a really important facet of marketing. And there's companies out there that are like, oh, we'll just have ChatGPT write this. And the issue with that, right? And there's benefits to it, but the issues is, it's not going to have your unique brand identity, right? That mission, vision, values, that tone and voice, those things that you create that have to infuse everything. A robot's not gonna do that, at least not today. So that's definitely one of the big changes. The other change is certainly that marketing more and more is getting the clout that it deserves. So going into marketing is becoming increasingly challenging. There's a lot of pressure on marketers' shoulders. But it's super exciting because there's so many different things that you can be doing that really make impacts to the bottom line. I think the last thing I'll say is, when I first started in marketing, people were specialists. You did one function of marketing. And then it was like the opposite. So it was very much that people were generalists. You did like a little bit of everything. Then people became specialists and you did one function. Because there's so much, right? There's digital marketing, there's creative, there's content. There's events, there's so much you can be doing. I think it's going back now where there's a need for people to be more generalist, at least at the top. So when you elevate up to CMO positions or CRO positions, you have to know a little bit of all of these functions of marketing in order to get to it. You don't have to know it so well. You'll hire a great team, but you have to know it and how it pieces together with everything else you're doing. So there's sort of been an interesting arc in how marketing itself as a function has been divided and, kind of together come apart, and now I think going back together.
Like so many things, it's a pendulum that swings to one extreme and then the other.
What would you say are some skills and abilities of a successful marketer nowadays?
Today, you do have to be very analytical. So make sure that you get comfortable doing that. A lot of big marketing teams will have their own data and analytics teams supporting them, which is great. But especially if you want to elevate, you have to understand how to make sense of those numbers. So that's one thing. Communication. Marketing often has to make the biggest cases out of anybody in the organization to do the things they want to do. You really have to be able to justify what you're doing because, quite frankly, so much of what you do will fail. And it's the best, right? And I always tell my team the same thing. I want you to fail because that means you're pushing the boundaries and we will learn something. And the more you can learn, the better, but that can be harder for different companies. So you really have to get good at communicating, advocating for what you need, and not being afraid of failure.
Other questions? All right, I wanted to make sure I got this one.
Oh gosh.
So no, I think this will be easy for you, but I hope beneficial for you.
Okay.
So many of the students in this class will be actively seeking the next co-op. And soon enough, they'll be looking for a full-time job as well.
Mm-hmm.
What job seeking and career advice would you give to today's marketing students?
Okay, couple things. I don't know how much you guys are gonna like this, but get on LinkedIn. If you're not there, get there. It's only exploded, and that's even post-pandemic. Number two, increasingly, especially in marketing functions, but increasingly in business, influencers is a really important thing, and anybody can create themselves and become an influencer, right? So regularly posting, being in conversations, having conversations like this, you can really get yourself out there. It does make a difference. That is sort of how people are finding talent today, is people that are, and some of it, especially in marketing, you have the ability, you can be as silly as you want, you can be as sort of serious as you want. So, there's some guys I follow on LinkedIn that are hysterical, and they do these really silly videos, but they have really great messages about sort of what's working and not marketing. They'll admit failures, right? But marketers generally really want to learn from each other. So I would definitely say, you gotta be on LinkedIn, you gotta put yourself out there. Creating your own personal brand will only help you in a marketing role. And I think also don't be afraid to try a lot of different functions, right? So if there's a role that you're like, maybe I wanna dabble in this, but I'm not sure, give it a try. Because marketing benefits from really understanding all kinds of functions. So even if you take a sales role for a little bit to understand what it's like to be a salesperson, which is a very hard job, that can help you with your marketing career. And people that are hiring good marketing talent value, certain breadth of experience.
Absolutely. I just want to pick up on what you were saying about the influencer. I'm sure that when you say that, this audience, I know my kids at home, I know many people think that capital I influencer, 1 million followers on Instagram and so on and so forth. But there's such thing as what I call a lowercase I influencer as well.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about how we can have influence without necessarily seeking celebrity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to inserting yourself into the conversation, right? So the more that, and it doesn't have to be your own thoughts, you don't have to be the one necessarily creating this content, but commenting on the content, being in the room, attending events, getting people, the world is small, guys, right? And in the world of, marketing, you'll end up going to a lot of the same events as other marketers that you'll see over and over. As much and as big as marketing is, like that does happen. So the more that you bring yourself to those things and volunteer to speak if there's an opportunity, or that is, you don't need millions of followers, but you've sort of created yourself as this lowercase influencer in that realm.
And marketing is no longer a one-way communication, is it?
I mean, it shouldn't be. Sometimes it is, guys.
Tell us more.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so marketing, I actually think it's like communication from, like, it's all over the place. And I think that's one thing, like, get ready for chaos if you do a career in marketing, because it is pretty chaotic. But marketing has to be able to communicate whatever it is you're selling, that story, that vision, all of those things really, really well. But it really has to listen. And that's the most important thing. And I think I told you this story, but I worked for an organization that just didn't want to listen to the market. And it didn't work out well, right? So as much as you may think you have a great idea or you've created a great idea, if your market is not willing to spend money on it, you don't have a business. That's all that matters. Their opinion, not yours, not, oh, I used to sit in their seat and I had this problem and now I'm gonna solve it. If they don't care about it enough to spend money on it, you don't have a business. So it's gotta be listening.
Any other questions from the audience? I know we're wrapping it up in terms of time, but I wanted to make sure we heard from you. All right. So, Brooke, how can people follow up with you?
Oh, so definitely find me on LinkedIn. You can absolutely share my contact information, my email, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's a very easy way to find me, and I encourage all of you to link to me. You can just watch kind of the conversations that I'm in, and hopefully you'll learn some stuff from the people that I follow, or the things that I post myself. But yeah, and then you can reach out to me directly on that.
Awesome. Well, time has flown by.
I
This
know,
has
this
been
has been
great.
fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And with that, we end another edition of